Every single SharePoint site you work with is part of a larger site collection. A site collection is a container that holds other sites. At the top of the site collection, there's one site, often just called a team site, and it's not unusual if there's nothing in the team site except other sites, because its purpose is to hold the entire collection. This top level site then has other sites that we'd refer to as subsites. For example, a team site, another, and a third team site, as many as we wish. And these team sites can have their own subsites. In the case of our site, Inside NOI, what we first see is the Inside NOI site, our top level site. And we have lots of content there because it's a landing site for many, many users. But then we have another site that's called Sport. We have a site for our sandbox that we saw earlier, and we have a company-wide employee self-service site that we'll be creating in a little bit. We'll also be creating another site for the home products group. All of these are in the same site collection. Now, in many smaller organizations, there's only one site collection, and all of the other sites fall inside of it. But if you're part of a larger organization, or an organization where there's a lot of delineation between different work groups, then your SharePoint site may have more than one site collection. As users, we might want to understand why we would have multiple site collections. Your IT folks would configure multiple site selections if they realize you have very different areas in your business that don't overlap. For example, we have a sales team and they have a group of sites. And we have some other folks that work over here in manufacturing. They have a couple of sites as well. But the folks from sales don't look at the manufacturing site, and the folks in manufacturing don't have a need to be in the sales site. They're totally different areas of the business, and the way their sites are set up, it's not like they never talk because sales is selling the stuff that gets manufactured. So, of course, these folks want to talk to each other, but their sites aren't set up to be sites that face each other. They're set up to be sites that are used internally. Safety is a manufacturing site. South American sales is a sales site. Now we have some folks in operations, and they clearly are linked to everybody else here, and yet their sites are specific to the work that they're doing. Now, any of these teams could decide to have an external-facing site where the accounting folks would have the ability for salespeople to drop off orders, for manufacturing people to drop timesheets and requests for vendors, those kinds of things. But right now, with the sites that we see, there really isn't any need to have all of these in the same container. And there's a real win if they're put in different containers, and that's really what this is about. Multiple site collections provide really great focus. We can have settings that are specific to operations, another set of settings that are specific to all of manufacturing, settings that are specific to the sales group, and so on. And we can get reports on a site collection as a whole. So if we want to report on the SharePoint sites for all of the sales unit, the best way to do it is to have them all in one site collection. The same thing's true for each of our other groups. We also have the ability then to distribute the administrative tasks. So rather than having one person who's responsible for all of the administrative tasks for the site collection, by having multiple site collections, we can spread that load around more evenly. And finally, remember that when we create new sites, each site can inherit the permissions from the site above. And therefore, if we have a site collection that is just sales, it's really easy to set up security that reflects the security needs of the sales group. And every site then can inherit a lot of permissions from the site above. Same thing's true if we have a separate collection for manufacturing. But if I have to have all of these users in one site collection, then my top-level site is going to be pretty complex from a security point of view because it will have to meet the need of each of these different user groups, and that makes inheritance a little more difficult. When I begin mixing different kinds of users into one site collection, it's hard for me to have unity of permissions that will serve me all the way down to the lower levels of the site. So every SharePoint site is part of a collection, and whether your SharePoint administrator decided to have just one site collection or to have multiple site collections, every site that you use and every site that you create will be part of a site collection in SharePoint Online.